It's not exactly good for our cardiac health for us to watch the competition, but there's a reason why the Six Nations Championship is the best rugby competition outside of World Cups. Despite Warren Gatland calling the first half of today the worst first 40 as his career as a head coach, Wales almost turned a really bad deficit into a miraculous comeback. It was a brilliant game between the Scottish and the Welsh, and my name's Max. I'm the host over here at this channel, and I want to say a huge thank you to my patrons before I give a bit of data analysis and tactical analysis on how the two teams got on, what they did right, and what they need to work on. It was absolutely incredible to watch. This is, I guess, the embodiment of why I love the Six Nations as a Kiwi. So without wasting any more time, guys, let's get into this. The first thing we'll notice in the match is that Wales were attempting to run a sliding defence system similarly to the All Blacks and the French. In this slow-mo, we can see what Wales are trying to do, it just isn't being done as effectively. See, because Sam Costello, the Welsh 10 in the tinted circle, is facing the bench, Stain, a heavier player, can slot between this gap and the Welsh defence thanks to Costello lacking proper spinal support to use both shoulders in the tackle. Because Costello is forced to wrap around Stain's knees and not his waist from side on, Raffel is forced to shove Stain into ground in order for the tackle to be completed. This means he now lacks the time to release before a jackal attempt, with Costello unable to roll away due to his low tackle. Domachowski and Beard have every right to just sit and stand there. See, if these two follow the animation and compete for the ball before a penalty gets called, anyone with an IQ that matches their age knows Ben White will pick and go. Domachowski needs to guard the fringes of the ruck to stop the animation of White's pick and go, with Beard as his ruck clearance option. While it may look lazy of these two to just stand there, why would they compete for the ball when they're already a man short? When Costello does finally roll away, the sliding defence system leaves the Welsh short on numbers for the other wing, thanks to the system not providing him with the timing to tackle at Stain's waist. Although Russell's cross kick under advantage doesn't get to Turner and Scotland take the three, this wee play allows Scotland to learn how the Welsh defence is operating. In order to set the platform for their first try, the Scottish run several inverse lines at the Welsh defence to disorganise their main defensive line. After 12 phases of Scottish attack in the 11th minute, we can now see the long-term effects of targeting these angles through Brown, Wainwright and then Botham, all wrapping around to the open side so that they can assist Adams. As Schoeman gets ready to pick and go, we'll now freeze the frame to show that Gray has already binded to him. This is reminiscent of what France did against Ireland and gives Schoeman and Gray a combined weight of 244 kilograms. Although Brown performed poorly in the scrum for Wales, he shows defensive intelligence to bind to Adams in order to combat the Scottish drive. Wainwright also gets low with one hand on the ground. Botham, however, stands higher, then pays the price for it. We'll exit the freeze frame to replay the motion of Botham's wraparound to show that he plants his feet between Brown and Wainwright on 10:21 in the match. Schoeman picks the ball up on 10:26. Although Botham has 5 seconds to bind to Brown and give Wales a more robust defensive line, he doesn't do so. He doesn't match his teammates' momentum until Schoeman is driving forward. This gives Schoeman the time to get lower, go underneath, before reaching out for the opening try. Russell's second penalty goal for the Scottish is followed by one more try to complete the first half of the test match. What gives Scotland's attack the opportunity to exploit the sliding defence by Wales is the fact that on 29-27, Botham and Watkin aren't marking anybody. These three Scottish backs are all running towards the open side, while Cummings takes the ball from the head of a three-man pod, Turner and Ritchie flanking him to clean the ruck. Now, Scotland are incredibly smart about how this pod attacks, as they deliberately run it straight at Wainwright and Domachowski, forming a red cross to block Botham and Watkin from wrapping around to the open side to mark the Scottish carriers. Scotland's shift means that Jenkins is marking Russell, with the rest of the white arrows showing the Welsh defence lines, though Adams needs to turn towards the inside and cover for the event that a close animation of Russell wraps around out wide. Russell does indeed wrap around, and we now pause again just to highlight the decoy line by Hugh Jones. runs. Something that the All Blacks would often do during the 2023 season, and particularly at the World Cup. They would fire a few short balls off to Rieko Ioane's channel, as he was the heaviest player in the All Blacks backline. They did this for the sake of gaining a few extra metres thanks to Ioane's bulk. Tompkins observed Tui Peloshu suck Beard's attention in, so Jones runs straight at Tompkins as the slow-mo shows us. As we pause again, there's clearly contact between the two midfielders, but because Sam Costello is in a position to legally tackle either of Russell and Van der Merwe following the pass by Tui Peloshu, Jones's decoy line can't be ruled as an obstruction. The two white arrows show us, though, that Costello is stuck in a 2-on-1, so roll clip and show another try for Van der Merwe. We'll now just take a quick ad break before we get into discussing the halftime stats of this test. So guys, as we can see, Scotland are up by 20-0 at half-time. Warren Gatland, I do think, had every right to call this the worst first 40 of his career, because Wales were pretty bad. You could see what the Welsh were trying to do. They had a clear game plan, the players knew what it was, but they were having a lot of trouble actually getting the execution sorted. They were having a few knock-ons, they were having a few errors, and my goodness, we'll discuss that lineup very shortly, because they just could not get that right, rather. But with possession and territory, we can see there's not exactly a huge amount of dominance for Scotland. The territory and possession are pretty much lopsided either way. It's very, very close to being even, but the difference is the Scots are breaking that line more often. They've got 3 clean breaks under their name, under their score sheet. The Welsh have none, because while they're both showing their strength, beating more defenders, Scotland are a little bit more cohesive, a bit more united, and as I talked about in my preview of the Six Nations, I was pretty certain this would be the case between their two teams, as the Welsh are continuing the path of their rebuild, whereas the Scottish have retained a lot of the talents that they utilised during the 2023 Rugby World Cup. They're the only team in this competition who have the potential, I think, to defeat the Irish. The Scottish as well, they're getting a lot more of those offloads to hand. The Welsh attempted a few by all means, but the fact that Scotland managed to get 5 all to hand and continue attacking, it just shows, you know, that TWI, the fact that Tui Peloshu and Jones, they play at club level together, and it was also really nice to have Cam Redpath on the bench to be there with Russell as their teammates at Bath, using, you know, that teamwork that's developed at lower levels, bringing it to Test rugby. It takes a lot of time to click, and the Welsh can't be too frustrated that Scotland were using those as advantages. The thing is, though, I do want to commend both teams for really just having a hugely high tackle percentage. This game was very, very strong defensively from both sides, and I'll get onto a little bit more of that defence after I talk about the ruck success, because the Welsh, you can see they're doing really well over here. They're retaining their own ball at every single breakdown they've had in that first half. But the fact that they're a little disconnected with the sliding defence strategy that I showed you with a few clips, that's why they're not exactly committing as hard when it comes to the opposition. They've got a few rucks disrupted against the Scottish, but they're not exactly committing the same energy when it comes to rucks on defence, just because of the sliding system, and you know, that reflected itself with the turnovers one that we saw before. The lineup, though, my goodness, absolute shambles for Wales. I truly believe that Ryan Elias had such a dreadful game that sadly this could be his last ever test match. I hope not. But at 29, you do have to think a hooker has to get his lineup throwing correct. Scotland, though, I do think they have to work on the lineup as well. It's not just the Welsh that were having struggles there. The Scottish did have a few problems as well. The scrum for both teams as well, I do think, is a work on, though. I don't have too much to say about the penalties, because I think both teams had really good discipline in the first half. That's enough for discussing the stats of the first half. I now want to get into the second half so we can discuss the Welsh comeback. As we discussed such high tackle ratios for both teams, the only real gaps to turn up resulted from one team working harder than the other, such as the example on 41-52. The blue axis shows us pretty blatantly that Wales are standing in a straight line on defence during Scotland's counter-attack. Now, if I was this lot, I'd want to shift into the space here and cover. Beard, Asarati and Wainwright, though, don't. And when we pause again just 2 seconds later, we can see the result of their defensive clumsiness. While Rafael makes a solid tackle on Russell, Beers needs to be standing on top of the red cross in order to mark van der Merwe and tackle him with Asarati as a ruck clearance. As their tight five forwards, there's no chance the tackle is going to be made at this point, as van der Merwe scores his 23rd try for the Scottish. The thing about being Welsh, though, is that your team are going to have some very, very deep lows and some unbelievably amazing highs just as a result of, that small player pool. As Wales finally get their line-out functioning, Botham is able to redeem himself with a try off the maul before being subbed off. Rio Dyer is the next man to score with George Turner in the bin. The backs launch their attack on the left wing, which means that Cummings, Ritchie and Fagerson are all offside after attending the previous breakdown. Tompkins then does brilliantly to suck in the defence before he offloads, with Stain marking Grady and White marking Lloyd. The 14-man Scottish team don't have an extra man out wide to tackle Dyer as he grounds the ball. To score their third try, Wales tap and go after another Scotland penalty. Now watch Tompkins disrupt Crosby at the breakdown. With this clean out, Tompkins forces the Fagerson brothers to drift over to the blind side, following the animation to guard the fringes, as Crosby would have done after his breakdown exit. With the brothers continuing to follow the white arrow as Wainwright picks the ball up, Wainwright is able to run between Xander Fagerson and the breakdown to score between the gap. Alex Mann on debut is able to get the fourth Welsh try off another driving maul, so it's all coming down to the wire from here, and agonisingly for the Welsh, Duhan van der Merwe nearly gets his hat-trick, though it's held up. Scotland win anyway by 1 point with a 27-26 win. Absolutely massive for Scotland, getting their first win in Cardiff since Dafydd Jenkins, the Welsh captain, was born in 2002. Absolutely massive for these players, these Scottish players, getting that win. Great stuff. The possession and territory I don't think we'll talk about too much because it remained relatively even, but we're seeing the Welsh are breaking the line a lot more. They're getting some offloads into the game at last, and they caught up to Scotland with 4 turnovers compared to 3 after. The substitutes did a really good job when they came onto the pitch. I can imagine that Gatland would have said a few fiery words to get the boys back, and that spirit really showed, having been ever present through that World Cup. So this was kind of an example for the Welsh of what not to do in the first half and then what to do well in the second half, though Scotland obviously deserved to win by having an amazing game throughout that first half. The tackle success remained really high for both teams, which is really good. Scotland just having slightly less of a tackle percentage than the Welsh by attempting 6 more tackles there. The goal kick success could probably be better for Ioan Lloyd. He missed his first one in front of the posts. Maybe that's just a bit of a confidence thing as he's 22, but the Welsh continued their presence at the breakdown with 100% rucks cleaned. Really good stuff there. The Scottish only missed 4. I don't think it's too much of a big deal to mention now, as there's 4 years to go till the next World Cup. They have time to make these mistakes. This is the time to do them. The line out, though, I mean, you can talk about the breakdown all you want, but this is a mistake they must correct quickly, because both of these teams are yet to face the French and the Irish, who are probably placing their first and second on this table now that we look at the Irish result. Huge for them. And the scrum as well. If Scotland want to take down the French, if they want to take down the Irish, they've got to fix that scrum. The replacement tight 5 forwards really did not have as much power to help them in that facet of the game, and there was also a huge, discipline problem for the Scots in the second half. And the sad thing is that 6 of these lineouts that were misthrown by Wales all came off, penalties Scotland had given away their inside their own half. Scotland, throughout the entire game, they conceded 10 penalties inside their half, and 6 of those that could have been used to attempt goals with, Wales instead went to lineouts with. So it's sad to see some teams haven't quite yet learned their lesson from South Africa being offered 4 kicks at goal in the 2023 World Cup final and accepting all 4 of those shots at goal. Scotland really showed some bad discipline, but Wales, I want to commend them for not letting that frustration continue after Duhan van der Merwe's second try, because, you could see a bit of embarrassment on the faces of the players, but whatever happens with Wales, you know they're going to turn up, they're going to fight hard, and they're going to be proud of their country while wearing that jersey. Daffy Jenkins, I do think, did a pretty decent job at captain overall. He just might need to grow into the role with time, and he's succeeded with Exeter. It just might, need a few years to become the real deal with the Welsh if he keeps the role after Jack Morgan returns from injury. Finn Russell is the captain. Maybe the co-captaincy was the right call as well, because Scotland definitely could have taken the three more often. They only took it twice, and having just that extra buffer zone would have been really good, as the goal kick percentage did end up deciding the scoreline for the poor Welsh. Excellent game, I think, for both teams. They just, I guess, need to get a little bit more consistency, and that's the beauty of being at the start of the World Cup cycle. You've got 4 years to correct their mistakes, and we'll see where the Scottish and the Welsh go from here. Thank you very much for both teams for entertaining me a fair bit. Thank you to you guys for watching the video. Just remember to like the video and subscribe as well if you enjoyed it. Do comment your thoughts down below just to give me a hand with the algorithm and, I guess, generate discussion about the match. Wowzers, guys, absolutely massive. Thank you to my Patreons as well, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers for watching from Max.